All right, CFA Nation, how are you doing? Nick here.
Gabe.
And we are so excited to bring you episode 3 of the test. Once again, I have reviewed the test, a basic overview, spoiler free on Born Reviews, but the audience has asked for Gabe's review. He has so graciously allowed me to be part of that review. And so we are reviewing episode 3. We've already done the first two. And Gabe, why don't you get us started on some of your thoughts for episode 3?
Episode 3, or as I like to call it, the Virat Kohli episode, bro. I tell you what, bro. I know we're supposed to be rooting for the Australian team here, the way it's framed, where they're telling this redemption story, and for the most part, we are. But out of all the episodes, and I've seen the entire thing, okay, there's a lot of other characters that do get a lot of spotlight and a lot of time. Like Archer gets a lot of time. I can't remember the one boy's name from England, the batsman from England, the red hair dude. I can't remember his name. But
you mean the entire series, right? Not just
in the entire
this
series,
episode.
right.
Yeah,
No, no,
yeah, yeah.
in the entire series. So I mean, they highlight other players around the world, how good they are, what they mean to the game, but none more than Virat Kohli, bro. And it's awesome when Justin Langer, who, JL, bro, he is a legend in cricket, all right? Not only did this guy play for many years, he was part of some of the most unbelievable Australian teams. They even mentioned, like, he played like every game was his last, because if he has a bad test, it would have been his last, because that's how good that those teams were those days. They could have easily replaced you.
Highly
And he even
competitive.
said, highly competitive. And he even says, listen, Virat Kohli's the best player I've ever seen in my life.
Oh.
Like, it's, you know what I mean?
And you love it too because they're so gracious towards who Kohli is. And when I first watched this, I didn't know a lot about Virat Kohli. I assumed that he was kind of a newer star on India because he looks so young. But this guy was on the 2011 World Cup team with MS Dhoni. He had been with them, I think, for at least a year or two before they won the World Cup. He's been around for a while. He's put in his time. He's earned his stripes. He is one of the highest paid players in the IPL. This guy, he's a megastar. And so when they say that this guy is the best in the world, that's no hyperbole. That is, in all intents and purposes, the truth. And when I did a little bit of research on my India video, this guy is one of the best T20 player or ODI player. Now I'm going to question myself. I want to say ODI players. One of those two, he's one of the best in the world. He scores so much runs in that format until he started to stretch it out into other formats. But they keep talking about how he is the best, and they're just, they're looking at it as a bunch of fans. And that's one good thing about the way this episode starts, is it starts off with them talking about their love for the game, how it's just like in their bones, in their soul, how they just get excited around summertime like we do when it comes to baseball and springtime. Even though the baseball, those guys are called the boys of summer, it really starts in the spring for us fans. And when they were talking about their love for it, how you go on the beach and people are playing cricket, and you go in the yards and people are playing cricket in the summertime and they're getting out their equipment, that made me think so much about how we feel about baseball with the smell of the glove and the grass and the ball, all that kind of stuff. That was really cool. And you can see that JL, he's a fan first, who happens to have been a player, who happens to have gotten his baggy green, who happens to play for the national team, like you said, when he was a player. And he's talking about Virat Kohli as if, he is this awesome guy, like a fan. And then it's funny because once they start playing him in their test series, the first time Virat Kohli played with them, he didn't score too many runs. That's when they were on their hot streak, the first 5 or 6 outs. They were getting the Indian players out with like less than 50 runs or something. But then the other 2 or 3 or 4 times that he batted against him, I mean, he was ruthless. And he was going after him. And you can just see JL just so stressed out, just every ball thinking we're never going to get this guy out. You can see how much he does not like playing against him, how much he would much rather coach and have him play with them. But I thought that was hilarious how he was just, he was biting his nails every time Kohli got up there.
Well, you do so well with these quick synopses, so I'm gonna give you a chance to go ahead and do that as well. But basically, before you do that, I just wanted to get to the one
I like to
part
see
where
you try it, my friend. That'd be awesome.
you know what? I can try.
I have faith in you. I do.
I could try. Okay, well, here's what happens in this episode. Like you said, it opens up with them talking about how historic cricket is and how summertime means cricket, the smell of the grass, much of what you already said that really kind of parallels us in baseball here in the States. Then they start talking about how they're going to go and they're playing India, and India's coming in, and they interview Virat Kohli, and Virat Kohli's up there as the captain of the Indian team, and he's like, listen, it doesn't matter where Australia is right now in their development or in their growth. It's Australia. It's hard to win. We're not taking anything for granted. We're going to go out there and we're going to let them have it, and we're going to make them feel uncomfortable. And
not
I think
just that, but it's in Australia. It's on a new on a new field, a new stadium. All these different things. You can see the crack, even though it's new, you can see the cracks in there. One of our viewers, I think, of Born Reviews, or maybe it was a Patreon, went into great depth about why each team has such a big home field advantage. It's not just the fans cheering; it's that they all have their own different conditions for playing the field. And, maybe there's a lot of humidity, maybe there's a lot of moisture in the air, maybe it rains a lot, whatever it is. And those players are well adapted to their conditions. And so another team that's coming in once or twice a year, whatever it is, and playing those conditions, it's just so difficult. And they have their bowlers suited to those strengths. So anyways, like you were saying, Kohli was like, we don't care what kind of things they're going through. This is coming to Australia. It's hard to play against these guys, and, continue on. I just want to mention that.
So, right away he says in the meeting, we're going to play like we normally are. We're going to be aggressive, and we're going to make them feel uncomfortable and, razz them a little bit. It's okay. So then it cuts to the Australian team where they're like, listen, there's a difference between, good old hazing or good old badgering and abuse. It's okay to taunt. It's okay. But we're not here to be abused. And we're not here to give out abuse. So we're going to carry ourselves well. And then the captain of the Australian team, I always forget his name. Tim Payne, he's like, listen, I don't want anyone to engage. Virat Kohli's going to try to get in our heads. He's going to try to get under our skin.
And
I don't want anyone to engage. All right. Just leave it alone and go out there and play our game, because we can't fight back any which way. Right now, we're under the microscope, so we can't really give it back to them. So they go to the first game, and it couldn't have been scripted any better. The first two Indian bowlers are out. Batsmen are out, and I would say maybe 7 balls or something crazy like that. I think the first one was like, by the time it got to Kohli, it was like 2 for 15, if I'm not mistaken. Like, holy cow, are you kidding me?
That might have been it exactly, yeah.
And then Virat Kohli comes up, and they're like, you can see the pressure get on them. And it wasn't a duck because it wasn't first ball, but I think second or third ball, and my boy Uzi makes an unbelievable catch. He dives and one hands this thing, and everybody goes nuts. Like, there it is, Virat Kohli's out without much damage, and that just completely deflated the Indian team, right? So the rest of them go down, and they went down with a really low scores, like 187 or something to that effect, 167. Then you're gonna go to the Australian team. The Australian team already has an opportunity to take a command in the series, command in the game, and they start letting it slip through them. And now Virat Kohli, they figured like, okay, he got out quickly, so that's going to kind of shut him up. No, this guy is, bro, he's the Michael Jordan of the sport. And what I mean by that, if anybody's watching this series on Michael Jordan on ESPN now, okay, I forget the name of the series. It's like the Last Dance or something like that. Yeah. So, bro, Jordan was not only was he a trash talker, he was an intimidator. People that were on his team didn't like him. You know what I mean? Jordan was that kind of guy, and you could see Virat Kohli getting under their skin, and of course, it ends up being a close match. We go to the next day. Like you said, the first match, they ended up getting Virat Kohli out relatively quickly. By the second match, Virat Kohli's Virat Kohli. And at this one funny scene where JL is not even looking, bro, because Virat Kohli's been batting so long, he just turns around. His back is to the window where he looks out of, in the stadium. And he's just like, I shaking his head like, I can't believe this. He's not even looking. It's so ugly. So they start getting there, and they let it get away from them. And JL's absolutely upset. He gets in there and after the game, goes and starts talking to. He said, like, guys, we can't let this happen. We had our foot on their throats, and we're letting the game slip away from us. He's one guy. Get with it. And then Tim Payne is like, I kind of broke my own rule. I let him get under my skin. I think he's getting underneath everyone's skin. So Virat Kohli is giving them send-offs, and in send-offs, I was like, oh, I had never heard that term before. Every time you make it out, basically, it's like sending you off back to the bleachers, so to speak. And I mean, they do that in certain sports as well. It's really frowned upon in most sports. Like, you tell the guy, go hit the bricks, go hit the showers. He's got this little chest thing he does, like, go get a send-off. I love it, bro. And it really got under the Australian team's skin. They're super pissed. And then the Indian bowlers are really, really aggressive. There were a couple of bouncers that were really, really nasty. And I want to say it was the third game of the series. It might have been the third game of the series. Tim Payne finally earns his stripes back by letting Virat Kohli have it back. But he does it in a way where instead of like getting, talking trash back to him, he's like, man, you're the best player in the world. You're the most unbelievable player I've ever seen. Just like overdoing it. But he's like, look, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to talk back. Because like he said, the entire time, not only are we playing the Indian team, but we're doing that or fighting against them with one hand behind our backs because we can't really get them back to them because we're under so much media scrutiny. And Tim Payne earned so much respect by his mates and by other people for that because, he stood up to the mighty Virat Kohli. Make a long story short, like you said, they built this team down to build them up to just break them down. This series is so gut-wrenching because they end up losing. The first time India has ever won, and this happened on JL and Tim Payne's watch, bro. And I mean, they were like, are you kidding? Like, you could see the look and the feeling on their face, like, we lost and we lost at home. They wanted to kill themselves. It was so bad, and I felt bad for them. But just going through those trials and tribulations there. Also, their opening batsman, I kind of glossed over that in Australia.
Finch.
I can't believe Finch, he struggles, and he struggles mightily. He's getting out right away the first game or two, and he had a duck in one of the games, and they're thinking about replacing him. But Australia sticks to his guns, JL sticks to his gun, and eventually Finch gets out of this little rut that he's in or whatnot and performs and plays well. So again, you see them build them up, but just only to later on let you down. And it was such a great episode, not just because it was Virat Kohli, we got to see his personality, why he's such a great player, but because you got to see some of the nuances of while a guy's in a slump. We call them slumps here in America. Okay, you're thinking to yourself, what am I doing incorrectly? Everything goes against you. You don't know what else to do. You see that raw emotion, but you saw JL kind of stick to his guns. Like, no, this guy can play. This is where we're going to put him. This is where he bats or he doesn't bat. At one point they were thinking about moving my boy Uzi up. So when I saw it the first time, I was like, yes, I love Uzi, move him up or whatnot. But then that would have meant Finch wouldn't have batted because he's just an opening batsman. That's what he does. So it was, again, one of those things where this episode, there was a lot of up and downs. Ultimately, it culminated with India winning in Australia, which was a really big deal. I guess it had never happened before, and it happened on Tim Payne's watch. So again, people were like, oh my gosh. And JL was just like, I can't believe this happened on my watch. But at the same time, they earned some respect, and Tim Payne earned respect not just from everyone else in the locker room for standing up to Virat Kohli, but from everyone else in Australia. And they're like, okay, this is how these guys are going to play. They're going to battle, and that was that was a cool part about it. But man, I love this episode.
It's there's a lot of sides of the coin there. Obviously, India, and I know you're not saying they are in any means, but I just want to add, they're obviously no slouch whatsoever. India's got a serious national team. They got some serious players on there. But, I mean, the biggest story here is losing that series in Australia. You got the new stadium. You got the new pitch there ready to go. You got the cracks nicely formed so that they can get their bowling action there. But one interesting thing about the Finch story is it's got to be super tough. I mean, this guy is our second in our batting order, so to speak, and this guy's not producing. And we need some guy to produce, but at the same time, it's Aaron Finch. This guy knows what he's doing, so we can't just put him down because he's struggling for a few times. And I really like that about JL. we're going to struggle with him because eventually it's going to pay off. And then he makes a small little tweak. I mean, this is what you do when you're a manager or you're a coach. You don't try to just scrap everything and panic. You try to see what small things can we tweak. Sometimes it's motivation. Sometimes it's mechanics. Sometimes it's confidence. And it was getting in Finch's head a little bit, but the small tweak he makes as the coach or the captain is to put him as that opening batter and not number 2 and just do that. And I think Finch said this is the first time I ever opened in Test cricket. So, I was a little nervous about it, but he was able to, break down some of those walls. And I want to say him and his partner had a century combined on their partnership at least. So that was awesome. Cool little foreshadowing where JL's talking about Uzi's looking good in practice. You see that grab he made, and then he made that grab against Kohli. So that was pretty awesome. Kohli himself, I mean, this guy, this is what you want in your star. You want this guy to be ruthless. You want this guy to let them know bye-bye. Here in the States, they like to play this song, nah, 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 right? The whole song, goodbye.
Yeah.
I don't want to sing the whole thing in case, the copyright algorithm comes after me. But you like to sing that when a pitcher gets, taken out with all these runs and they get taken out of the game, and you like to sing that to the opposing pitcher. It's a beautiful thing. So it's cool that, Kohli is that passionate, and he's showing them, I'm the captain, get out of here. We don't need that nonsense. And even when Tim Payne is going after him, and they show in the episode that, I really think Tim Payne got the better of Kohli there. That was awesome. I tend to disagree because I feel like Kohli was really getting the better of him. I thought it was cool that Tim Payne was holding his own and was not backing down. And it was kind of funny that the umpire at one point's like, hey, guys, knock it off. Now, again, they're having banter, as JL calls it. They're talking back and forth. They're not bringing in your mamas. They're not bringing in swear words. They're just having a conversation. But we know this is, true to what cricket is as far as it's a game of respect and gentlemen, that even that was too much for the umpire. And the umpire is like, not that he can toss him. I don't know if he can toss him, but he's basically saying, you guys need to cut it down. You're both the captains. Act like it. And even Tim Payne at one point, he knows cricket, obviously, but he's like, I can't talk to him now. I can't have a conversation.
He said we're having a conversation. There's no profanity. Like, we can't do that. And he's like, cut it out, boys. You're both captains. And I'm like, everybody must hate
having it. And, we know there's umpires in all sports that have a shorter leash and a shorter tolerance than other people. That guy obviously doesn't have much of a tolerance. But
let us know in the sorry to cut you off. Let us know in the comments if there's a specific umpire or official who's known for having a short fuse, and he's, when an umpire is too big, when you know him by first name. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Joe West. I'm talking about you. There's this umpire in professional baseball called Cowboy Joe West. They call him a cowboy because he's so quick to toss people. But when fans know him by a first name, you're an umpire. Nobody should know by first name. But that's how famous he is, because he tosses coaches and players alike with no regard for the fact that you paid not to see him toss people, but to see your favorite player might have got tossed because he said something, or maybe he threw his bat when he struck out, or whatever it might be. And is there that like you said, I don't know if in cricket they can get tossed, because we've seen some sledging that was way worse than what these two guys were doing. I didn't see any umpire saying anything there, but here, for whatever reason, this umpire was letting Virat Kohli and Tim Payne have it, and I'm like, why? That's just dumb to me. But let us know in the comments.
But I'm a traditionalist at heart in a lot of ways, and I kind of like that. There's something going on, as each generation comes in, the rules get bent in all aspects of life, not just sports. But you have these phrases where, we are in our 30s and, we don't feel like we're too old, but we can easily say there's lots of things that are accepted by society that would not have been accepted 20 years ago. When I was younger, that wouldn't have been allowed. And so I kind of like that they are traditionalists in the game of cricket, to where this is going to be a gentleman's game. We are not going to allow this or that kind of stuff. This is what it's going to be. And maybe it was because they were the captains, the representatives of their countries. Who knows? Maybe the umpire was embarrassed for the game. Who knows? But that was quite interesting. But I'm okay with it, because that's how it's been as far as gentlemen and as far as respect. I keep going back to our reaction to the best cricket fights, which there wasn't one fight on there. And that's okay. I found that to be interesting. But the coolest thing about this episode and our viewers have been mentioning in the comment section, we learn and we see how tough Test cricket is. I mean, it is so unforgiving, and it is so demanding. And you can have the first 5 guys out of your 10 guys out in the first few hours. They've only scored 50 runs, and you are propelling yourself to getting them out maybe at just a century and a half, but not so fast. There's 6 through 10 hitters. There's 6 through 10 batsmen. They are able to bust a 200 on you, and now you're down 250 or 280 or 290, and you're just like, how are we down only 50 before halfway through? And now it took us the rest of the day or the day and a half to get the other 5. You just never know. And at the same time, I want to say there was one inning that Australia had in this episode where they went out pretty quickly, where maybe they got 100 runs in their 10 wickets. And it was so quick. And before they knew it, like we're all going down. We're not getting long at bats. Going back to the practice fundamentals of JL in episode 2, where he says, if you get out, we're going to switch the rotation up. We're going to do not get out, protect those wickets. And that's where it would be so tough being a Test cricketer, because you get that one chance. And you have that in all formats, obviously, but you have that one chance to be up there at the wickets, and you've got to defend. You've got to protect those wickets, like Raul Dravid did, where he would spend hours just in front of those, or Uzi did in that one game, spend hours in front of that wicket with his partnership and protecting it. And I'm going to keep protecting it. I'm going to keep protecting it. I'm going to lay off until I see my ball bowled the way I want, and I'll crack it away for a few runs. And then once I got them on their heels, then I'll be a little more aggressive with it, because it's all about time. If we're down, it's all about time, because we want to get that draw. If we're up, it's still about time, because we want to make sure we make use of our time without taking too much time before we decide to declare. And so 5 days, are you kidding me? Test cricket is 5 days. It's insane. It's not a bad thing. I'm not saying insane is a bad thing. I just mean insane as far as mad respect. And you get a lot of that in this episode.
It's funny when you were just talking about how Uzi was up there batting, and it was like, he batted for 9 hours, and JL was like, that's the most unbelievable inning I've ever seen. 9 hours, bro. Are you kidding me? That's insane. But going back to when you were talking about earlier,
dude, I can't play a video game for 9 hours straight.
Who you telling, bro? Very few things I can do. I can't even sleep for 9 hours straight.
I know you can.
I wake up and get restless. Yeah. But no, seriously. How they were talking about how the opening batsman matters so much, and that opening partnership, because the longer they're up there, the more the ball starts. Again, they use the same ball in cricket, so you don't want your middle of the order guys going up there with that ball still brand new. The ground hasn't been worked in, so there's a whole synergy to playing cricket, where what the first 2 guys do is going to impact the bottom part of the order, or even the middle part of the order. And one thing I was doing was, you always want to, and this is my teaching style as an educator, what I do is I try to make things familiar to kids. So when I teach, I don't teach necessarily strategies, I teach concepts, so that they can equate one concept to another. It's going to be easier for them to remember, if that makes sense. So when I'm doing here, I'm like, wait a minute. In baseball, it's very similar to whatever. If you're playing that twilight game, right, middle of the afternoon, if you're that you're going to be in the sunlight, for instance, for X amount of times, but then when you're going to be in the shadows, that's going to be a disadvantage. So as a batter, you want to make sure that you're taking as many balls as you can, because you don't want to go through the order too quickly. Vice versa, if you're a pitcher, you're not trying to throw too many balls. You're trying to get strikes early, because it's going to be harder for them to pick up that ball out of your hand, because once the sun completely goes down and it gets dark, it's way easier to pick up the ball. That's why more runs get scored at night games than day games. Also, when it comes to baseball, you also have the middle of the order, and we're talking about pitchers. Like, your starting guy and your closer are your best arms for the most part. Those middle relievers, they're middle relievers for a reason, okay? They're not good enough for the most part. I'm just being real. They're not good enough, okay? Not even closers, bro. All closers are failed starters for the most part. So when you really think about it, you want to get to that middle of the order as far as pitchers. You want that bullpen. So what do? You want to get that opening pitcher out. My Yankees are masters of this. How do you do it? You take pitches, because especially in today's game, they're not going to let you go out there and throw 120 pitches, 115 pitches, 130, whatever it may be, in a game in June that doesn't matter, or a game in August or whatever. You got a pitch count, 110, 105, you're out of there. They're going to protect your arm. So the more you can foul balls off, hey, I may not be able to hit a home run on this, but I know I can just put my bat on it to make him throw one extra pitch. And it's so much like cricket where you're thinking about that next ball, that next ball, that next ball. Same thing in baseball, that next pitch, that next pitch. Why? Because you're wasting bullets on that guy's arm, and you know the guy that's coming in after him ain't as good. Bottom line, he's not as good. So it's the same thing here where there's such intricacies to it. And if you're a leadoff guy or opening batsman, you're that partnership in the beginning. It's such a responsibility because let's say, God forbid, you're out on the duck and your partner maybe scores, 5 runs or 10 runs, whatever it may be or whatnot. You just left a tall order. And not just that ball really hasn't been beat up. The pitch hasn't been over, so now the guys behind you are seeing a lot harder pitches to handle, and it really, really matters. Which goes back to the very first episode when JL's trying to teach them to bat for as long as they can because it matters. We don't want to get out right away because you doing that is going to hurt or adversely impact the rest of the lineup. So his philosophy is just bat as long as you possibly can.
But see, this is where we have some differences with baseball and cricket. Obviously, there's lots of differences, but in baseball, to your point, if you're a leadoff guy or a second guy or a third guy in the lineup, you want to take a lot of pitches, especially the first two batters, because the people in the dugout who are going to bat later on, they're going to be able to see some pitches. They're going to be able to see the delivery. But the advantage in baseball is when that number 1 or number 2 guy or 3 guy get out, they go back in the dugout and they're talking to the other hitters. Okay, this is what his fastball's doing today. This is where his changeup's coming out. This is what I'm noticing on the release. So make sure when you're up there, you do this, and they're giving the scouting report, so to speak. In cricket, not only do you not have the same bowler, obviously each bowler switches after each over, 6 balls thrown. So they're all going to have their own little style, their own different delivery, as we saw in that one top 10 bowlers video and whatnot. But those guys that are up there, they don't get to go back and tell their fellow teammates until they're out. And if they're out on a duck, they didn't get to see too many balls bowled. And if they're out there for 100, 150 runs or so, they may not get a chance to tell the guy coming in. And that's a less of a disadvantage there for those hitters to know, okay, they're throwing a lot of Yorkers. They're throwing a lot of spinners today. The spin's going this way, spin's going that way. And so you have 2 big differences right there. Same kind of philosophy. Let's take those balls. Let's wear them out. Let's make sure the shine goes off the ball as much as possible. Let's make sure that the pitch does their little thing as the game drags on. But it's got to be tough to have not all the batsmen coming up to be able to get that scouting report on what's happening. They have to be vigilant and watching. Hopefully they are from their little clubhouse box with the TVs or whatever. But let us know in the comment section, is that something that's a big deal? Do they look at how that bowler is bowling that day, or are those bowlers pretty consistent and the scouting report you have beforehand goes into play? Or is it big in scouting report like it is in baseball? I mean, every player's got a scouting report on them. Even a guy called from the minor leagues, they got something on that guy, hopefully. And it's huge in baseball. Let us know if it's huge in cricket. This episode, my final thoughts on it is it was cool to see the state of India Test cricket, because we did not know that too well before we watched this episode. It's cool that each episode's going with a different team and showing their positives. I feel one of the best things about this show is how magnanimous they are, where they're showing all these teams. They're not trying to be over biased with Australia's awesome, their teams are garbage. They're giving all these teams their credit, giving them their due, highlighting some players, highlighting what they do well. And it's really fun to watch. It's like you get to see a different team each episode, which we do, and what their strengths are. So I really like this episode a lot. I like the way it began. I like the way it ended. I like knowing more about Kohli and the different players on that team. We didn't get a lot of specifics on the other players, but we have talked about players like Rohit Sharma and some other guys on that team. But episode 3 was great.
I liked Nathan Lyon, and I'll tell you why. Because he's not the most imposing guy. Okay, you look at him, and this looks like the kind of guy that you might have a beer with at a pub, not a guy, a professional cricket player. Okay, he doesn't look like an intimidating athlete. But what he does, and he does so well, is that he sticks to his plan and he wears you down. And he talks about how he goes out there and, he's just, his goal, his job is to continue to make you work, make you work, make you work. It's almost like he's working backwards. And he said, and eventually the wicket's going to fall. You know what I mean? He's not going to try to go out there and just overpower you right away. He's just going to give you balls that you really don't like, that you can't handle, that at best you're going to get a run off of or whatnot. You know what I mean? Or just defend. But he's not going to give you those balls where you're going to just get those sixes on him right away. And he's not going to try to necessarily challenge you and overpower you. He's going to get you to get yourself out. And there are so many pitchers, especially in their latter years here in America, once they lose their stuff, they're done. They're done. I can't throw hard anymore. I'm done. And real pitching is when you can still get a guy out and you're not throwing, 98 miles an hour, 97. It's being able to say, okay, this is what he wants to do. So let me not let him do that. How can I counter that? And Lyon, that's what he does. He's a real bowler. He knows how to bowl. I really liked he's so, what's the word, bro? His demeanor. He's so calm. He's so chill. You know what I mean? And you really like him as a person. You do. You really like him as a person. So I just wanted to talk about him this episode because I thought that he definitely shone a little bit. But yeah, that's the review, the test. Episode 3, like I like to call it, the Virat Kohli episode, the send-off episode. Okay? That's my new favorite word, the send-off. Okay? Sledging and send-off. Those would be my favorite parts of the game, right? He said the send-off and the sledging. But, let us know in the comments again. Are there umpire or officials that are just like American umpires that are famous for being short-tempered? Is that normal that they don't even let them have that kind of back and forth banter? Or was this umpire like, oh, I'm on TV, I saw these cameras, let me just, try to make a name for myself? I don't know.
But we hope you enjoy our review for episode 3. We will be having episode 4 coming out shortly. And don't forget, before you're done, or once you're done with this video, check out some other videos on our channel. We have at least, 14 or 15 or so. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time.
That's 6 runs.